Today, we're going to interview a great old friend of mine, Tom Frank. Tom is a restaurateur type character. You've probably eaten in one of his restaurants. I met Tom way back in the 80s, and at that time he was a waiter. He was waiting, and he had this reputation of the waiter that made the most tips. So he has a knack at service in the service industry, and he's pursued that. And I think he learned that at a very early age, that he liked doing that sort of a business, because I've known him since the 80s, and that's pretty much the direction he's always been in. So we'll let Tom tell us a little bit more about his career, but our guest today on BOPisodes, Born on Purpose, is Tom Frank from Phoenix, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Frank. I met you in the 80s, and you were a waiter back then, I think. And you had a reputation for making great tips. You know, as well as a really creative guy, because when I met you was like an art opening, right? And you were friends with Linda, my spouse at the time. We weren't married back then, but we were together. And you were good friends with her, and you were going to check me out to see if I was cool enough for her or not. So, but
we were all cool back then.
Yeah, boy, were we. So, so tell us a little bit about. The whole point of the BOPisodes thing that I'm doing is Born on Purpose. And I had such a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do in life. I thought it would be interesting to go and talk to people that have figured out what they wanted to do, and talk a little bit about the epiphanies that they may have had that, you know, when did you first figure out, oh, this is what I want to do? You know, what's the story? What's the time when, you know what, this is the lifestyle that I want to produce. And you seem to me that you've always known for you know, maybe from very early on. So tell us who you are.
I mean, honestly, aside from what I'm doing now, I remember back when I was 16 years old bussing tables, that I knew there was a better way to manage restaurants, that's for sure. And I mean, I knew that it wasn't supposed to be us against them. Like, I knew it wasn't supposed to be the front of the house against the back of the house. Like, I knew that wasn't the way to run a business. I knew it wasn't supposed to be the employees against the managers. And in a lot of cases it was. I knew that it wasn't supposed to be us against the customers. Now, I knew that for sure, but I worked in restaurants where it was definitely us against the customers. Now, I remember working in places, Bob, where the only thing that got in the way of all the fun we were having was those damn customers. That never made sense to me. You know, the employees were mad at the customers. That didn't make sense to me. And we had rules. We had rules. And you remember this because, you know, back in the States, it was very common on the bottom of a menu. Do you remember what it said on the bottom of the menu?
No. No, what was it?
Substitutions.
Oh, no substitute. That's great. That's amazing.
Right, think about that. Think about how dumb that is. We have rules for the customers.
I guess in the 50s and 60s that changed. Like, my dad had that doctor thing, right? Where you did what the doctor said. And that changed.
And no question what the doctor said.
Yeah, that was it, boy. That's that. And people still believe that stuff. You know, oh, he's a doctor, he must know what he's talking about. There was that mentality, that authority, expert, you know, business, this is, I'm the chef, you're supposed to like this, you know, and don't tell me.
Oh, yeah, no, I got fired from one job, Bob, because a lady, she said, I really want to get this walnut apple gorgonzola salad, but I'm allergic to walnuts. Could you tell them to take the walnuts out? And I remember I was a waiter, and I went back into the kitchen and said, the lady wants you to take the walnuts out. She's allergic to walnuts. Chef said, tell her to order something else. And I looked at him and I said, seriously, if you won't take the walnuts out of her salad, why don't you go tell her to order something else? And I got fired from that job. The fun part about my career is that it has evolved to now I teach the things that I used to get fired for.
Well, you know what I have to tell you as a friend, that was one of the blessings of having you as a friend, is you always, I could always count on Tom Frank having a different angle to think about something about. I could, you know, somehow you found the silver lining, or you pointed out the silliness of some train of thought or some viewpoint.
Of the chef not taking walnuts out of the walnut chicken salad.
That's just crazy. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And I knew there was a better way to run restaurants. I knew it. And I knew there was a better world. But I was lucky, Bob, because I always knew what my better world was. Like, I knew my better world was simple. I just wanted to come to work every day and feel good about myself. Like, I wanted to go to work in a place every day where I was judged on the quality of my work and not my waist size or who I was dating. And so I was clear, my better world was simple. I just wanted to be valued for the quality of my contribution. And what I learned early on, well, I became a manager, and then I became an owner, and then I started opening restaurants around the country. And what I found out is that in order to create that better world, my better world for me, that I needed to provide that better world for everybody around me. Not my better world, but their better world. So a lot of people say to me, how do you know what people's better world is? And I think that's pretty simple. Just ask them. And I think you'd be surprised if you ask people what their idea of a better world, of where they want to work. I think you'd be surprised at how good they are at articulating it. And so people would say, well, isn't everybody have a different idea of what their better world looks like? And I say, yeah, absolutely. And I understand that, but I'm not going to work hard to create a better world for somebody who doesn't care about the job. I'm not going to create a better world for somebody who doesn't show up on time for work, or somebody who doesn't care about the customers. So my job was to then hire people whose better world was similar enough to mine, and at least moving in the direction that I wanted the better world to go. And then I would work my brains out to help them create their better world for themselves. And that's where I really started to understand that my success was going to be based on creating better workplaces for employees.
Tom, that's brilliant. And it is the secret to everything. You know, I mean, and that may seem like a broad statement, but it is. Because you not only touched on the fact that there are people that just don't care, and we talked about the Darwin thing. There's guys that they just aren't awake. They're just not even home yet, you know, and they don't have any idea what they want to do or how they want to do it. And
don't hire them.
Yeah, don't hire them. Don't spend a lot of time with them. Don't have them around you in life, you know, if you can avoid it. You know, in terms of, we even have family members that are like that, but and their families, you
can't fire your Uncle Mel.
Yeah, that's right.
I always wanted to fire my Uncle Mel.
I never met Uncle Mel, but it sounds like it was.
Which is interesting, Bob, because it's why I've never talked about my employees as family. And it's not because I don't care about them like family. It's just that they're not my family because I can't fire my family. And I you know, I've always wanted to fire my Uncle Mel, but I couldn't. And so, to me, I say, you know, you're really not family, which is kind of a good thing. You're community. We're creating a community, and a community is something we build, and we build actively. With intention.
Yeah, with active intention about where you're headed.
I happen to be one of the few people, I guess, my age, that is a huge fan of millennials. I'm just a huge fan of the young people in the workplace now, because they're more agile than we are, they're more intelligent, they're more goal-oriented, they've got all kinds of, they know how to do things that I just can't even imagine doing, and I'm very impressed with them. But I'm just amazed at how many people my age are shaking their fist at them, like when we were young, and the older people saying, you know, those millennials, they have no work ethic, they don't care about anything, they're lazy, they're all entitled. And so one day I was speaking at a conference, a pretty significant sized conference. And after my speeches, people get up and ask questions. So one guy gets up and says, what are we supposed to do about young people today who are entitled and are lazy and have no work ethic? And I said, okay, let me get this straight. So you're saying that you've been hiring a lot of young people that are entitled and lazy and don't care about anything? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you really want to stand up in this group and admit that you suck at hiring people?
What did he say? What did he do? He just you went...
Sat down.
He sat down. Yeah.
Don't hire people that are lazy. I mean, because if you want to find lazy, entitled people, you check out the people I went to the high school with. You know what I mean? So I don't think that really fundamentally changes. Just, I wasn't that way. I worked my whole life when I was young, and find those people.
And another pearl of wisdom, another grain of truth to add in the stack. We're going to have a whole stack of truth rice here that on the table here. We'll do another brilliant thing so that we'll put a ding in there for that. And I think not only as an employer is that true, but just as a person, it goes.
Yeah, I know, but I think what companies are missing is understanding the value of being the employer of choice. That especially in the restaurant business, the fact is, if you are the employer of choice, you will become the restaurant of choice, or you will be the business of choice. And so any company that doesn't understand the concept of employee first, these companies are like, we're guest first. What? If you don't get your employees behind what you're doing, it's not going to happen. And to be the employer of choice is really the key. And so whatever you have to do, call me. I'll tell you what to do.
And I would apply that. I take it back and apply it to just general life. Who are you employing around you? What kind of friends are you gathering? What kind of mentors are you seeking? Who are you hanging out with? Because there's a whole statement about you're going to be the 5 people around you. They're your closest friends. What their average income is probably going to be about the same as yours.
When I talk about this, what I call the better world, I've really become aware that you can't get there unless you know where you're going. That at some point, you and the people around you have to articulate what this better world looks like and the direction to move towards in order to get there and not be stagnant. Because like I said, you can't get there unless you know where you're going. So I think it's really important to articulate with everybody around you what it is that you're moving towards in terms of creating a better world for yourself. It's been a moving experience in my career because the company that I helped start, opened up all over the world. And one of the restaurants they opened up is in Dubai. And this is years after I left the company. And I recently was online and there was a YouTube video from the employees of the restaurant in Dubai. And they were talking about the better world, their better world. And for me, for that better world philosophy to reach that far out, especially in a place where perhaps they don't have the freedom to actually believe that they can do something better on their own, it really moved me.
What's the state of the union in the restaurant biz these days? I mean, maybe you should answer that in 2 parts, because there was a pre-virus time.
I was working a lot. A lot of companies really understood this. There's a term that a lot of companies are using now, overusing, misusing, and the term is culture. And so everybody's talking about culture now. Not a lot of people know what it is, and a lot of people really don't understand it and are misusing the term. What I've learned, Bob, in my career is really comes down to something very simple. that culture is as culture does. Culture is what it is. Culture isn't the poster on the wall. It's not what we write in the employee manual. It's not what we put on our website. Culture is what exists. If you have a poster on your wall in your business that says, we're a drug-free company, and you have employees selling crystal meth to other employees out back, guess what? You're not a drug-free company. And not only are you not a drug-free company, you might be the only one who doesn't know it, because your employees know what your culture is. If you somewhere in your vision and mission and value statement, you say, you have the word respect somewhere in there, but one employee in one part of your company is being disrespected by their boss, you're not a company of respect. And everything else that you say loses credibility. Culture is as culture does. My favorite saying about that is from Howard Moskowitz. He wrote, to a worm in horseradish, the whole world is horseradish. So you really need to switch between what are the aspirations of your culture and what your culture actually is. And they identify what you would like it to be and what the horseradish actually is. Because when you think about it, your employees know what their horseradish is. They know what they live in. They know what exists around them. You better too, because we put a poster on our wall and say, that's our culture. That's just a lie.
It's a spin of that same thing we talked about earlier in terms of like listening to the customer instead of dictating to the customer. Listening to your employees instead of saying, here's what's supposed to be. But it's a combination, Tom. Like you said, you don't hire, if you knew that guy was going to be selling crystal meth out the back door, you wouldn't hire him. You know? Unless that's what your business was about.
No, I mean, but of course you don't. But your employees know that's happening. Mm-hmm. And so they need to understand what's in it for them. They need to understand that their better world is coming to work every day in a place where there is nobody selling crystal meth to their employees out back. Because people don't really want to work in a place that is, that has drugs or where they're being bullied by other people or they're being disrespected by their managers. But they just don't think that they have any real power over that. And so our job is to give them power, empower them to understand that you can be part of creating the culture that we want this to become. And cultural aspirations are important, but we need to distinguish between the actual aspirations and the culture itself.
And what's really happening.
I think that's really important because I think right now everybody's talking about culture. Before this whole thing happened, people wanted to be the employer of choice because it was very simple. The employers of choice were getting the best employees because there were so many jobs out there, people could choose where they wanted to work, right? And because of that, the best employees go to the best company.
Right.
Hoping we get back to that soon.
What percentage of, in your industry, what percentage of businesses were getting that, understanding that, and starting to go in that direction versus the percentage when we were kids, in the 70s? Did you see a change?
I certainly saw a change economically because what would happen is that the better companies became more successful. So I can't give you a percentage of, which ones they are or how many they make up, but I can tell you that, all people started seeing, everybody, all these venture capital companies and private equity companies started coming in. And it took a while, but I think more and more started to understand the ROI, the return on investment of good culture.
And now we've been 4 or 5 months into this virus thing, which I'm sure has just devastated your industry in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. So the only ones that will survive from this, most likely, I think things will start up again, but the ones that will survive will be the big ones that were highly successful. What's happening with those guys?
I hope it's the small ones that are successful.
Me too, but you know, how are they going to weather the storm? You know, that's the kind of difficulty, I think. What do you see?
I was sitting in my office, in my living room, and I was doing a puzzle. One of those 1,000-piece puzzles. And I had two epiphanies. This was at the beginning of the pandemic. And the first one was that I hate puzzles. The second one is that I needed to get up from this damn puzzle and do something important, do something meaningful. And so I started thinking about what I do for a living and that my focus on creating a better world in cultures in other businesses. And I thought, well, what am I supposed to be doing now? Like, how am I supposed to be making a difference? And at the same time that this was going on, the government decided to designate essential workers and non-essential workers. And they used the term essential workers and non-essential workers to determine who was supposed to be working and who was supposed to not be working. And so about the same time, businesses started defining the term essential as people who they needed to come to work every day and risk their health and their family's health to work. And then the people they were going to furlough, and then people they were going to fire. And when you think about it, the people that stayed home, even though some of them were incredibly loyal people who have worked for the company for a long time and really care about the company, now they were designated as non-essential workers. I mean, it's so unfair, and let alone the financial devastation that's involved. And listen, I told you about when I was 16, I knew I was essential. I always thought all of my employees were essential. And yet they took the word and they made it a designation of whether or not you were going to work after work or you were going to have to not work. And I thought, we need to take back that word. We need to own the word essential, because I know my employees are essential to our success. I know that the only way we're going to get through this is because we have employees that care about us becoming successful. I know that our employees are essential. But I think the thing that we're overlooking is just how much damage this has caused to our employees, to their mental health, I think there's so many of our employees, and we're unaware of how many employees are really broken right now. Their self-esteem, their sense of self-worth. But we're busy. We're busy trying to reopen our restaurants. We're busy trying to figure out how to succeed, how to make it through this. We're busy. I know we're busy. Yes, we're busy, but there's time for this. There's time to give them that feeling of essentialness that will translate to them into pride, into self-esteem, into self-worth, into meaningfulness. I think there's time for this, and there has to be time for it, because how are we going to get through this without our employees? How are we going to do this without approaching the mental stability of our employees? We need to heal our employees while we're trying to heal our businesses. And that's when I started this I'm Essential project, which started off as really just something simple. I called a friend of mine who was a graphic designer, and I said, what can we do right now? And he said, stickers. And I said, okay. So he designed I'm Essential stickers. And on the website, you can see what we've done. Because a sticker we can get printed up right now, you can put it on the employees, and we can give them that understanding that being essential is not a government designation. Being essential is what makes you valuable to our company, right? When my mother passed away, Bob, and you knew my mother, it was the first time I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, and in the 1930s, and he developed an entire philosophy of psychology called logotherapy, and he had not yet published his work when the Nazis came and took him to the concentration camps. And they destroyed all of his work for his entire lifetime. And he spent 3 years between Dachau and Auschwitz. And when he got out of the concentration camps, he wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning, explaining that the difference between the people that survived and didn't survive the concentration camps was that throughout all of this horrific atrocity, the people who survived were able to hold on to some sense of meaningfulness in their life, some sense of purpose in their life. And the people who didn't survive had none at all. And I'm thinking about, we still think, a lot of people still think that that people's primary motivation is money. But there's been a lot of research. My friend Dan Ariely has done an extraordinary amount of research on that. And he understands that, people right now, especially young people today, are really far more motivated by having a sense of meaningfulness, a sense of purpose, than just the money that we're paying them. So, can I try to read this quote?
Please do, absolutely.
Yeah. Viktor Frankl wrote, he said, "We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in numbers, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken away from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way."
I'll have to give you a profound for that one.
Oh, well, I didn't write it.
I know, but bringing it up in this sense, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm exploring the world of entrepreneurship these days as we get towards the retirement part of our career. And I don't know that you'll ever retire or I'll ever retire. I just don't see any future in it, for one. But the other issue is I just think I want to continue to stay active and continue to try to contribute, and now I still feel and think a lot like a kid, like back in the days when we were rummaging through our couches so that we could go out and buy ourselves a steak dinner. I still remember that. Yeah, it's Sizzler. Yeah, so I still have that attitude and that idea and that same fire, of wanting to make a difference, wanting to have a purpose, wanting to help other people. And now that we're older, we're much, much wiser and much more experienced. And I think we're even more valuable now.
Bob, when we last saw each other, did we talk about Chip Conley's book, Wisdom at Work?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we brought it up. I
don't know how many people are listening to this, but everybody ordered this book. It's called Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. And if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see that I've changed my title to Modern Elder, because Chip Conley has really defined the idea of staying relevant as we get older, and how to become a modern elder, and how to understand that there's a trade-off now. And the trade-off is you share with me your technology and I'll share with you my wisdom and my experience. You show me how to use this program and how to get through this, what I don't know about
this app,
this iPhone or this app. And I will share with you all of the years of experience that I've developed. It's a good trade. It's a good trade.
It's a good trade.
It first comes with respect. We need to respect each other. But wisdom at work is brilliant. And Chip is I'm lucky because he's a friend of mine, and Modern Elder Academy, where he's putting out blogs every day, sending them right to your phone every morning. The first thing I do is wake up with some kind of wisdom about Modern Elder. And I think we're there. There's a website, imessentialproject.com. You'll see on the website, I only mention coronavirus once, because I see this as a permanent shift in consciousness. I see this as a shift in mindset that we need to have about the essentialness of our employees and about providing them with an essentialness. I think people like you and I grew up with a pretty good self-esteem. And everything we did was, at least everything I did, was met with praise and adulation. But as I started managing restaurants, I realized that not everybody has that mechanism. So I'd say to Billy, hey, Billy, great job tonight. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And he'd say, okay, and get in his car, turn on his radio and go home. And so I realized, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted Billy to feel good, because self-esteem releases dopamine. It releases chemicals in our system that makes us feel good about something. Personally, I think that self-esteem is more addictive than heroin. And if I can get people addicted to their self-esteem, then they'll come back for more. So I'd say, Billy, stop. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. And he'd say, okay. I'd say, I respect you. And I think you should respect yourself. Because you're a good boss boy, you're going to be good at everything you do in your life. You're going to be a great lawyer or doctor or whatever you decide to do, because you're good at what you do. And I want that to make you feel good. But when you get in the car, don't turn on the radio. I want you to think about what I'm telling you. I respect you, and that's supposed to make you feel good. And I suppose Billy would roll his eyes and go, okay, whatever, and get in his car and turn on his radio. Maybe he'd turn it down a little, though, right? Maybe he'd think about what I said, and it would connect to that little mechanism that processes that kind of information into self-esteem, into pride, and it made him feel good. And when we can connect people to whatever we can do to help them process. So essentialness. I'm essential. I want people to understand that makes them important. It makes them meaningful. It makes them worthy. The other day, I have these stickers. I don't even have one with me right now. I'm driving around and I see a city bus driver pulled over, taking a break. And so I whip my car around and I give him the sticker and he puts it on. You'll see it on the website. And he smiled real big and I said, can I take your picture? And he said, sure. And I said, are you going to keep that on? He said, I'm never going to take this off. It's about time. Okay, that felt good, but to him. But to me, it brought tears to my eyes. And I realized maybe this is a little more selfish than I'm giving myself credit for. It makes me feel good to make somebody like that feel essential, understand their essentialness.
You know what? The most selfish thing you can do is to help somebody else.
Oh my goodness!
Because it is so gratifying. It is so.
You can imagine, Bob. Imagine if those if they were considered non-essential workers and there were no buses. Imagine if the people picking up the garbage were considered non-essential and they weren't picking up garbage anymore. I mean, these people are for so long they've been invisible. But now the government has designated them as essential and we see them, and it's time to stop not seeing them. I mean, it needs to be a permanent shift in mindset. And that's the movement I'm trying to create with the I'm Essential Project. Own the word, keep the word, do our essential, which really should translate. So somebody said, well, shouldn't we be defining the word essential? And in my situation, I think yes. For other people, it might mean whether you have to work or not. But for me, it means that you're seen and that you're somebody and that you're important and the work you do is meaningful. And that's the meaningfulness that I think that we need to be providing our employees. Now, are you busy? Are you busy trying to keep your business open? Yes. Are you too busy to do this? Well, if you are, your business is never going to stay open. Because if we're not doing this for our employees, we're not going to make it through this. Maybe it's not the stickers. Maybe, I mean, certainly not just the stickers. You don't just walk up and slap a sticker on somebody. You have to give them the sticker or a button, and you have to say, I want you to wear this because I want you to know that you're essential to our company and your work is meaningful. So I don't know what it's going to be. It's hopefully the people that join will tell me what it can be. I hope it's going to be a movement. Who knows?
It's about connection, though, Tom. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the whole thing that we've been talking about this whole interview is about connecting and listening. It's that same silly notion of you got one mouth and we got two eyes and two ears, two nostrils. We have the capability to bring in lots of information and data, but we're so often using the one thing that we have that we don't listen, we don't see, we don't. And I know I'm quite guilty of that.
And you know, I'm getting pushback on this too. I mean, I have people who say, I don't need a damn sticker, I need a raise or I need more money. And I agree, but they're independently two different things. One of them is extrinsic, one of them is intrinsic. I think the intrinsic value is something we can do right now. Somebody else said that we're just too busy to do this. No, you're not too busy to do this. This is simple. I think we created something that is simple enough to help managers and owners and CEOs understand that just providing just even the slightest little bit of meaningfulness to our employees is going to go a long way. I mean, somebody said they didn't want to be involved in this because we weren't promoting, living wage. Yeah, I'm all for it, but that's not. I mean, we don't need to do it all at the same time. We can do it all together, but this is what it's supposed to be, which is just doing one thing right now that you can do right now to deliver this important message to your employees.
What I'm hoping is that this whole break that we've taken because of the circumstances across the world gives us time to reflect and maybe change what the values are, what the important values are. Because, before it was just, it was money. It was making big bucks. And the people that did something that put them in a position where they got a lot of money thrown at them, they were considered valuable. But I think it was false value, and but born from the whole capitalism experiment and things that we're doing. There's another value that I think you're bringing up here, and that is the individuals. All of us have, this what this show is about is the whole thing of you're born on purpose. There is a uniqueness and there's a difference about you, and it may be a tiny, small difference from the guy next to you or the person next to you, but there's a difference that's significant to you, and you have a particular purpose that you need to get out there and fulfill. And part of that is essential to this world that we live in.
Disingenuous empathy, saying basically thank you so much to the frontline workers, nurses and doctors, and buy our hamburgers or use our plumbing company. We're not making any money at all. All the people that are working on this are volunteers. And I want to just be very clear about that. Because no, this isn't a business opportunity for me. It maybe is the most important thing I've ever done.
Wow. Well, I hope we can support. I hope we can certainly support. I think there's a tremendous value there, Tom. So I don't know. I don't really know how it will be possible that you make this thing happen and it doesn't somehow provide you some sort of sustenance. I just think that it'll maybe not directly, maybe not intentionally, but somehow, it is a vital, essential concept and idea. And like I said, I can't wait for the book. When are you writing the book?
But I really, really believe in the better world, that we can create it, now's the time to stand up and really provide employees with the belief that there can be something better. You know, look what happened after the recession, the last recession. I think a lot of companies really just dropped the ball terribly. They figured, oh, we can work with less people. We can get people to work harder for less money. People are kind of desperate, and so we can really take advantage of that. I just hope that doesn't happen again, because what they found out is as the economy got better, they suffered because they revealed themselves, who they were to their employees, and people started moving away from those companies, the companies who treated their employees well during that period of time. The people who are right now treating their employees well, that are taking care of people, but that are at least trying, I think I'm hoping will be the ones that really win during this whole thing. And I hope when this is all over, people are not going to take advantage of their employees because they went through this.
Yeah.
I hope.
I think this won't be the one and only Tom Frank interview. I think that we'll have, that's why if you saw in the Zoom invitation, it was the Frank series. So, this is number one. And I want to thank you so much, Tom, for taking the time to do this. And let's do it again. Let's absolutely do it.
Well, I'm just thrilled that as far away as we are from each other, and we're still able to be close.
Well, I agree, and I miss you, Tom. Last time I saw you was so brief, and I had such little time to spend time and enjoy with you because of the circumstances. But you know, we've got modern technology now, so we get to look each other in the eye and have a thing. Because one of the things that one of the last points that we'll bring up here is they've done studies, and long life. One of the biggest secrets to long life is social activity. It's not exercise, it's not what you eat, it's talking to every person that you know. And you were the one that kind of taught me that, the time that I spent with you, because you engage everybody from the doorman to the taxi driver to the cashier to the CEO you have a conversation and a connection with almost everybody that you meet. And to watch you do that was a great mentorship for me, because the value in that, they've now come to study, that's what makes you live long. It's not all the vitamins and all the other stuff. It's having connections.
You know, I figured when I was working in restaurants, people would come in for lunch. They would, and I would walk up to people during their lunch, and I would say, "How was that one?" And they would look at me like, "What?" I'm like, you have to enjoy our food one bite at a time. And I assure you they tasted the next bite.
Yep.
Because I think what a lot of people do, in order to get through their workday, they have a little switch and they flip their switch off so they can work. And then they go to lunch and they forget to flip it back on to enjoy their lunch. And how many people after lunch when they go back to work, and would you say to them at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, "So what'd you have for lunch?" And they just wouldn't be able to remember what they had for lunch because their switch was off. So it became my job in the restaurant business to make sure we were flipping everyone's switch back on to their humanness.
One more brilliant, Tom. One more brilliant. I got to put one in the corner. One more brilliant. Okay, Tom, thanks. I'm going to let you have your evening, and thanks so much, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll
keep your switch on, Bob.
Yep, you too. Thanks, Tom. Love you. All right, take care.